This is WPSL Port St. Lucie.
The opinions expressed are those of the host and guests of this program and are not necessarily those of station staff, management, or sponsors. WPSL does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WPSL. It's time to Ask a Rabbi. Call in with your questions and comments at 340-1590. And now, here's your host, Rabbi Shafir Lobb.
Hello there. I am standing in for Stuart with a double Ask the Rabbi today. So you have two chances to ask a rabbi. And in honor of having Stuart's slot, I'll be talking a little bit about Jewish law. Woo, how's that for a cross topic? There is Jewish law, just as there is actually any culture has a law body. And so it's kind of interesting because when you're ordained as a rabbi, there's two questions that are asked in the process. Yora, can they teach? Yadin, can they judge? And that's because there are judgments made of different things. Not only is something kosher, which is one of the more common, but also just, when do you do this blessing? How do you do that? And so there's a tradition that says when you ask a rabbi, you kind of interview your rabbi before you ask the question that really matters, because once you asked, it has been judged. So there's a little bit of significance there. And I will share just a little bit of background this time, but please do give me a call because this is Ask a Rabbi. And you're free to call with any question you might have. And if you're looking for the live on Stuart's webpage, it's over on mine. And the number to call is 772-340-1590, 1590. And I'll be glad to take any call, including from Bulldog. So anybody who wants to call in, please do. Any question you might have. So as I was saying earlier, that there's a body of Jewish law, and it's called halakha. And in Hebrew, ha usually means the, but halakha does not mean the law. It means holech, to walk. It actually means a pathway and kind of a guideline. And I remember one time passing a marquee on a church that said, what are they, the 10 guidelines? And I thought to myself, and I said, yeah, actually they are. Because who's going to know if you covet something from your neighbor, right? The only one who's going to know is God. And so, yeah, it is a guideline. It's an idea of how to live your life, to have it be as good as you can make it. And so that's part of the ideas. And it says of Jewish law that it's not in heaven, it's not so deep in the sea, it's not across a mountain, it's not out of reach, and it is something by which you shall live. Not die by, but live by. And so the guidelines, the laws, the rules are designed by time and nature and God and everything together to help people live together as community. And if you think about it, being covetous of your neighbor's anything is not going to help you have a good relationship with your neighbor. And so as crazy as it sounds, yes, it's a guideline. It's a way how to have the healthy relationship with your neighbor is to be glad for your neighbor having what they have, that it makes their life happy, as long as it doesn't hurt somebody else. Yay, great. Glad they have it. Glad they're happy about it. I don't have to have the same SUV that they have.
And yet we have this saying, keeping up with the Joneses.
Yes, we do, don't we? We're competitive.
Yeah.
We're a competitive
Or the grass is greener on the other side of the fence.
Always is, right. Other man's grass is always greener. The sun shines brighter on the other side. And that's probably as much as I can sing of that on several levels. Certainly without accompaniment. And so, we do have this competitive nature, and I think that probably comes from the hunter-gatherer days. And if you think back to really, really early survival of the self is the first, right? You kind of need to know that you're going to have enough food to get through the day, that you can get in out of the thunderstorm.
And that's an instinct that's just there.
It's there.
It's there.
That's life preservation, and
Right.
it's very deeply rooted in all life. right? I'm going to say it's even in a plant,
Sure.
right? By the way, I've got willows from Sukkot sitting in water, and I'm watching them put out their little roots, right? Because they too want to live, right? So everything that is alive wants to live, and even those who struggle with that, right, want to live. They want help, and so that's important. And to go past that actually takes a different level. Right. Then a mother and a father start to care for their kids, and they care for their loved ones, and we start to reach out, and our me flips over and becomes we. And one of the things that I like to say to people is that the measure of how big your soul is how wide that W in we becomes. Right. Because as
we, our family, and then we our community.
Our clan. Right, and then our community, our city, it can go the block, the neighborhood, the city, the county, the state, the country, the world, the universe, right? And it's kind of interesting. This is Jewishly, this is the week where we start out with "in the beginning." It's usually translated as "in the beginning," but it's Bereshit, with beginnings, or with a beginning, right? With a beginning, and so every story starts somewhere, and I think that's part of the point that it's making is we really don't know much of anything beyond our planet, really. We're starting to kind of look at the planets in our solar system, and we know that there's other solar systems. We know that there's other galaxies. We get little hints that this universe is so immense that it's beyond measure. And we're this little tiny thing, If you look at the Milky Way, we're not even a pinprick in that picture, right? But you can also go as far down. If you go down to the cell level and start expanding it, right? We're just in the middle of this continuum, and we really don't know if it goes on and on and on, and if we're just this little tiny piece in this continuum.
If you look at it that way, we could be as minuscule as a cell when you look at the universe as a whole.
Right.
But nothing.
Yeah. And when we are. And yet we do, I think, fairly amazing things, both good and bad. And so halacha is about walking on the path. And so it talks about all kinds of things. The rabbis get into big debates, silly things. Do you add an extra light every night of Hanukkah, or do you start with 8 and work down to 1? So it can be down to minutia, and yet it's significant. Because what's the difference? Let's look at Hanukkah. It's the next holiday. Thank you, God, for having a couple of months between Rosh Hashanah and this crazy season that, thank you, God, just ended, and we're now into it. Right, this poor month of no holidays. She laughed. Right, and going, Hanukkah is the next, and it's actually a minor holiday. It becomes bigger thanks to the commercial aspect of Christmas. And we'll talk probably more about that as we get into that time of year. But we're going on, and so the difference between do you light 8 candles and count down is that that's kind of a negative thing, right? How much do I have left? It's a scarcity.
It's kind of a loss.
Yeah, it's a loss. Scarcity kind of model, whereas increasing the candles increases the beauty, the light, the festivity.
And every day I get more.
Yeah, every day you get more, and it's this abundance model. And it's worth noting that the two main schools of Jewish philosophy that predated Jesus, there was the school of Shammai and the school of Hillel. And Shammai was the one who said, we should start with 8 and diminish because we're counting off the days of the holiday. And Hillel said, no, we should increase the beauty of the holiday every day. And obviously Hillel won, and that's part of why, the law follows Hillel in all but 3 cases. Shammai only wins in 3 cases. There's a little piece that I show my world religion class where I've got the two of them up at a blackboard marking, and they're playing scissors, rock, paper, scissors, and it shows Shammai with 3 and Hillel with a whole bunch. And that's part of why the student unions at colleges are named for Hillel. It was a school of learning, and it's the one that the law generally follows. the thing that's really significant about those two schools of Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, those two houses of learning, was that they were always courteous and nice to each other, no matter who won the argument. And would that we all could do that we could have disputes and still talk civilly. That we could avoid the ad hominems because that's a fallacy. It doesn't really matter what somebody's grandparents did or whatever. What matters is what they're bringing to the table, right? Is what you're bringing factual? Is it of merit? Is it going to help solve the problem? Or is it going to be more of the problem in what you bring? Right? And that's really what matters. So when somebody does a personal attack, that really is a way of saying, I don't have a good argument. Right? So we need to be able to go through, this is the logic training coming in and saying, if you don't have a good argument, then a lot of times people will attack the person and say something, well, you're a whatever. You're a scoundrel. It has nothing to do with the argument on the table, but it's used as a distraction. And hi to everybody who's saying hi. And yes, it is early. I am covering for Stuart Address, who is an amazing lawyer. I will say that from personal experience. He did a really good job of handling my case. I'm very, very pleased with the results that he achieved. And I do recommend him. So please feel free to give him a call. We'll have his ad. Let's go ahead and play his ad, so people can hear a little bit about him. And hi, Ben. Don't miss it, the first annual Treasure Coast Expo on October 7th at the Port St. Lucie Civic Center from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Food trucks, exhibits, virtual room, lots of different things presented to you by Congregation Eitz Chayim. This is Rabbi Shafir Lobb of Ask a Rabbi inviting you to join us at our first annual TC Expo, a show you don't want to miss, October 7th at the Port St. Lucie Civic Center.
Do you have issues on the job with wages or overtime, family and medical leave, disability issues, discrimination, or sexual harassment? Do you have a landlord and tenant problem or have a contract dispute? Have you been defamed or have your civil rights been violated? Hello. I'm attorney Stuart M. Address, and for more than 30 years, I've been fighting for the rights of everyday people. I believe in aggressive advocacy combined with personalized attention. That means being available to my clients. It means answering emails, sometimes at 3 in the morning, and checking my messages over the weekend. It means caring about you. If you want to speak with a lawyer who will not be intimidated and who will actually care about you, call my office, Stuart M. Address, PA, at 772-781-8003, or send us a message through our website at www.stuartaddresslaw.com. We will respond to your calls and messages because we care. Our office is in Stuart, Florida.
And you're listening to a special edition of Ask a Rabbi. In for Ask a Lawyer today. Back to your host, Rabbi Shafir Lobb.
Thank you, and this is Rabbi Shafir Lobb. Please do give me a call at 772-340-1590. And for those who are asking, yes, Stuart is fine. He just had a family situation that took him away, and so we have a double header on Ask a Rabbi, which is, it's appropriate. We've got this great expo coming up this weekend. We'll get to talk a little bit about what's going on there. Please join us this Sunday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Port St. Lucie Civic Center. And it's more than a health fair, more than a gift show. It's more than you can imagine. There's virtual reality rooms. There's a chance to win a grand. There's food trucks. There's face painting. There's all kinds of things going on. And I hear a rumor that there'll be all kinds of extra goodies and things that are fun and exciting. So come join us. Admission is free. It's free to the public. And if somebody does want to give Brian a call, if they're trying to squeak in, I think he's got one table left, so you might have a chance at getting that one. Give him a call. You can find his number on our Facebook page and on our web page under events. So give Brian a call. And everybody else, please come and see what's there and have a good time. Maybe get your face painted. check out the virtual reality room, and you get a chance to meet our politicians. We have a couple.
Oh, joy.
Yes, we do. Well, we
Tis
have
the season, right?
We do, and I won't name any names, but we'll have folks from both parties because we don't play favorites. We have everybody there, so and I understand that you'll have a chance to actually meet them. That's what I'm being told. So
Great.
So hopefully that'll be great, because I think it's a good thing to actually get to know your politicians. It gives you a better feel of.
Yeah, we're getting into those weeks though where every commercial on TV is a political ad, and we're getting inundated.
Well, but that's even more reason for actually going out and if there's
Talking to them in person,
right?
yeah, sure,
because you get I love advertising, and obviously I love radio and TV because I'm here, and it also gives a different image. The little 30-second commercial, because you jam pack everything into it, or the 60-second commercial. When you're actually talking with the person and you can see their reaction, you see their body language, it's a different kind of connection. So I like events that do give you a chance to be able to do that, to actually meet the people and find out a little bit about them, what makes them want to be a politician. Right. What is it that is
right? You get a full answer too, with not just a soundbite.
Right. Yeah. Well, hopefully you get a full answer. Right. Politicians are are famous for What was that? Well, over there it's a blue sky. Yeah. Deflecting is I think politics 101. And so back to the topic at hand, Jewish law. Jewish law has been there since forever. It starts out with the Ten Commandments at the beginning of instructions. But right after it is the discussion of, so what is murder? Because one of those 10 commandments, 10 utterances, is don't murder. It's often translated as don't kill, but that's not really what it says. It says don't murder. And once you have that question, right, don't kill is easy. Don't kill, then, we all need to wear bare feet and walk very lightly because we're killing something immediately. So it's not about don't kill, because you slaughter for food. And, there is, unfortunately, war, and there is self-defense. Don't steal. So obviously not robbery and not assault. But then it says don't murder. And as soon as you use a word like murder, now you've got another problem. What's murder? And so the very next section in Torah, in the book of Exodus, talks about what is murder. And it talks about the difference between manslaughter, different degrees of manslaughter, and murder. So, and it says you've got, it's laying in wait, it's plotting, it's all of those things. It's not the axe handle flying off and killing the person who's chopping wood with you, which is unfortunate, but that's not murder. Right? That's manslaughter. And, are you still liable? Yes, but not in the same way that you would be if it was murder. And so it starts to bring up all these different levels of things. And then there's the test of, okay, well, what if you hit somebody, if you attack them, but they linger? How long do they linger until it's not from your strike that, they really were recovering, but they died from something else? And it's worth noting that even, a couple of 3,000 years ago, they were addressing those questions. Right? We haven't figured them out yet.
Right.
And they were working with it and struggling with it. It's not hard and easy, And it says, that if there is a charge of murder brought, here's one thing we've got, has to be 2 witnesses, not just one. You cannot put somebody to death. And so there's killing, right? Putting somebody to death for having killed. And sometimes a society needs, certainly biblically, to do that. They didn't have prisons when they were wandering in the desert. So you had to have a little more immediate kind of justice or control, or whatever we want to call it. But
well, they didn't really have anywhere to put that person.
They didn't, right? They
so
didn't
it
have,
wasn't, why erect prisons and
in the you're going to erect a prison in the desert and then leave them; they're going to die anyway.
Yeah, you don't.
Yeah,
they didn't have a system.
They did not yet have a system. And it's worth noting that it says that once you set up country inside the land, you will have at least 6 cities of refuge where basically criminals can go. So they're basically prisons. right? Cities of refuge. And who's in charge of them? The priests, which is an interesting sidebar. Right? People think of the priests as being only, ritual things. But no, they were in charge of the prisons as well.
Well, they were thinking reform too back then, I'm sure.
Well, I'm sure they were thinking several things. And, and who would, right, the early priests are also psychologists, and they're doing marriage counseling, and they're doing a lot of things that you have to read between the lines to pick that out. But it's there. It's very definitely there. And so you've got that early system, but it says, you can't do a capital crime. You can't charge somebody with a capital crime on the word of one. You have to have two witnesses. And then it goes on and explains that the witnesses have to be not related to each other, and you have to check each one out, and it instructs the judges to separate the two witnesses and listen to their story for consistencies and inconsistencies. And if there's any doubt, right, then it errs on the side of presumed innocence. So that's not something that America came up with, other than by.
But yet we're not really doing that today.
No, we're unfortunately
we've strayed.
Well, we always stray, because it's the popular court, right, not the legal court, and and they are different, right? Which I'm sure that Stuart. Well, I know that Stuart brings that up every so often. It's not as much about the ultimate innocence as it is about the process of law, right? Giving somebody their rights. And that's a slightly different, it's a very subtle but a slightly different thing. It's not just about whether or not somebody's guilty or a scoundrel or something like that, but it's, are they afforded the due process, right? And those are difficult things. In the public eye, no. Somebody, you'll hear it all the time, right? Where there's smoke, there's fire. Somebody has is ready to judge anybody. And we actually have the attorney himself calling in to ask a lawyer, ask a rabbi. Hi, Stuart.
I'm asking a rabbi, not asking a lawyer.
Okay. Hi, Stuart.
Hello, Rabbi. How are you?
I am doing well.
I thank you for covering for me this hour.
Oh, you're quite fine.
And I hope those who regularly listen to me are still listening to you.
And to you now.
There is a lot to be gained.
Well, thank you.
And you're talking about a legal topic right now.
I am talking about a legal topic.
So I have two related questions.
Okay.
The first is, you say that under Judaic law, you needed two witnesses for a murder conviction given the consequences.
Correct.
Were there other things that required two witnesses? And then the second question is, taking it to modern current events, with what we're dealing with now with Judge Kavanaugh and Professor Ford.
Okay.
You have a woman that comes forward what appears to be a very credible claim of sexual assault. But you don't have the corroboration of other witnesses.
Right.
Do we reject that because there are no witnesses? Or how do we handle making the determination of what is more likely true or not true, depending upon whatever the level of, proof is needed?
So I think that what we're ideally seeing, and not necessarily factually seeing, would be a thorough investigation of her claims. Were there witnesses? Were there people who saw her? And who could verify that she had A, been assaulted, and B, that he was in the right place at the right time.
How about that she was even there? How about that this party even took place?
Well, any or all of that, right? All of these questions, and
because even by her own admission, someone drove her there and someone drove her home. Well, who?
Yeah. So so there's a potential there of somebody who knew something. There were others there. If it happened, assuming that, if it's true. But the other part of it is that this is not a legal, he's not being charged with rape. He's not being charged with assault.
Right, not in this instance, no.
Right, so it's not the legal case of whether or not she's got a factual case of it per se. Here I'm using your words, right? Per se. I'm laughing to myself here. And so the question here is more, I think, did he or did he not lie under oath to the Senate?
Well, that's my issue, and they were not allowed to. The FBI was not allowed to investigate.
Or did she or did she not?
Well, yeah, but she's not.
We can't get past that. I mean, there's just no way. I mean, I don't understand how we get any answers when we're not getting those witnesses.
Well, we're it's unfortunate that the FBI has not been allowed to really talk to everybody, because I think it's an important enough question. We're dealing here with somebody who's going to have a life appointment. So this is not a 5-minute, hey, take this job and run with it. This is not, hey, Rabbi, can you cover my hour, on the show? This is a little more significant. If I were being considered for a lifetime appointment, where it takes an act of God to move you, maybe not quite, but awfully close to it.
Well,
yeah,
it's your job till death, so it is sort of an act of God, isn't it?
Yeah. Although there are retired, right? There are retired judges. Mm-hmm. The question here is more: is he a suitable person to be confirmed for that position? And so that's a different question.
But on one hand,
and that's the current event debate. But honestly, to me, what I'm saying, and maybe let's take it away from the current event. Maybe it makes it an easier question.
Okay.
A woman comes forward with a claim of sexual assault.
Okay.
There are no corroborating witnesses, but she seems credible with details and her testimony. She appears believable. Mm-hmm. It's denied.
Always.
How would that be handled under Jewish
law? So again, there would need to be a thorough. And anytime anybody is accused of something, Jewish law says you have to investigate, because there's the potential that somebody was hurt. And it's not, and it needs to be done somewhat delicately, because obviously you've also got a reputation that's at risk. So you've got this Lashon Hara issue on top of everything else, which is, you're not allowed to do evil speech against somebody. So there's a penalty if somebody brings an accusation and it's found to be false, right? Let's say somebody accused somebody of something, then they get the penalty that would have gone against the other person if they're found to have falsely brought the charge. So it's a little more of a backlash than we have in American law. Mm. Right? Can you imagine how many fewer people would accuse somebody of something, and manipulate things?
But you would make sure it's real.
Taking us on a little detour. That's the whole reason we don't adopt the English system of attorney's fees, where the loser automatically pays attorney's fees. We do have statutes where that could happen, but the whole reason we as a nation rejected the English model was because we did not want to discourage people without means coming forward.
Yeah.
And so that type of a potential consequence, it seems to me, if you're not believed, would certainly discourage many people of coming forward with many different types of accusations, much less accusations of sexual assault.
And it may well be. It may well be that had that effect. We can sit here and conjecture, and we don't really know, but it wouldn't surprise me. I know from personal experience, from all of the work that I've done with people who have been assaulted and raped, that very often they're afraid of all kinds of reprisals. And sometimes they like the person who did it and are having some cognitive dissonance with how to adjust their. I'm thinking in this case, I'm thinking more of parental or familial assaults.
But if you don't address the issue when the issue is fresh, you make a decision. And if your decision is to live without telling anyone, then you've made that decision, and you've let time go by, and you've let the evidence slip away.
Some evidence does.
This is my producer, so I'm going to say baloney, hogwash. Okay? It's not a decision that was made consciously. Sometimes decisions are made without a conscious thought, rational thought. They're made because of deep-rooted fears of consequence. Well, and you cannot, in my view, hold that against everybody.
And also, you're often dealing with somebody who's underage. and so they're not really ready to they may not be in a position to do something about it right away. And there's a ton of fear associated, particularly with sexual assault. Sexual assault is, it's a violent crime, but using sex as the weapon.
All right, so let's change the hypothetical a little bit more, as they used to do to me in law school.
Okay.
Let's narrow it, try to get really to the answer I'm seeking. Let's say you have a woman comes forward with a claim of sexual assault that occurred 6 months ago,
Okay.
but you still have no actual other witnesses to corroborate.
Right.
And the witness and the woman appears to be quite credible, but you also have the man denying it. How, under Judaic law, how would it be assessed as to who's right and who's wrong?
You'd pretty much be stuck in kind of the position that we are now, which is you have to talk to others and find out, how likely is it that it really happened? What are the characters of the people involved, right? And and you're going to expect to have what I believe in the vernacular is called the nuts and sluts defense, right? Where the perpetrator is going to say, well, that person sleeps with everyone and they do this and they're just loose. So you kind of need to verify if that's the case, or is this person, under some kind of entitlement idea? Are they, you have to be reasonable and you have to see what you can or cannot prove. It does come down to that. You might not be able to prove it, but you might. And I can't get my mind off of Kavanaugh. I'm sorry.
But see, now what has happened is both of them have been dragged through the mud.
Oh, okay, but going back to the narrow question. Let's say you have what you just said. What is the standard of proof? I mean, we have here preponderance of the evidence, we have convincing evidence, we have reasonable doubt. What would be the standard that would be needed, whether it's under, historic Judaic law or current Judaic law, determine who's right and who's wrong?
You're left with talking to their companions at the time. We are dealing with something that's 36 years old in this case. And I know other cases where it does take that long. And it's worth noting that in many states, sexual assault, rape do not have a statute of limitations. And if they don't have a statute of limitations, if anybody doesn't have a statute of limitations, that's telling you that it's going to take a while for some of these cases to surface. Right? Because if you break into my house, and you're the lawyer, so to catch me here, but if somebody breaks into my house and I don't report it, I can't go by 15 years later and charge them with breaking and entering.
No, because you have all sorts of statutes of limitations. Okay.
So, assault and rape usually, or not usually, I don't know how many states do or don't have statutes of limitations on it. I know that some states, I know Virginia doesn't, for example, and it can vary from county to county, actually, I think. But a lot of places don't have a statute of limitation on sexual assault and rape because it takes, we know it takes a while for victims to come forward. And is it credible that, that she wrestled with it?
Wouldn't it be better, though? I mean, shouldn't the young women then be taught that if you've got bruises on your body, you better show them to somebody. You better tell somebody.
We try to teach the kids today to do that. And certainly hospitals. It was interesting. I was walking on a side street by a restaurant just this past week, and there was a family with a young boy with a broken leg. He must have been 10, 11 years old. A broken leg, was in a cast, and he's hobbling on crutches. And as I passed him, I thought to myself, okay, how did he break the leg? Was that child abuse, or was that a baseball injury? Because hospitals today know the kinds of injuries that come from abuse. And, so that made me think of all of the different ramifications. Is this a kid who's been abused and now has to walk on crutches while his abusers walk next to him? Or is this a kid who, injured it innocently And his parents are now going to be cast in this role of, are you abusers? So it goes both ways.
And that's horrible.
It goes both ways. We know that broken bones.
Boys play rough.
Boys play rough, and the majority of broken bones are connected to abuse. So, you balance those two statistics, and it's hard because, the kid does fall and tumble on the football field or the baseball field or down the steps, right? Or they fall off their bike and break something. So there are a lot of innocent ways that the bones get broken, but there's also a lot of very dark reasons.
So are there standards of proof in the Judaic law?
Judaic law, it would take two people who could convince the court that it had happened.
So is that for almost anything? It takes two people?
Yeah, usually. Well, remember, it takes two people on a wedding certificate. It takes two people on a divorce certificate. Two witnesses.
Two witnesses. I mean, everything that we do is two witnesses, right?
Jewishly, yes. All documents are
even
signed.
if you get something notarized or... Yeah.
Yeah, very often you need two witnesses. Okay, I'm talking to lawyers, so how many more
Stuart,
things
do we
take.
need two witnesses?
You very rarely need two witnesses anymore for anything. You do need two witnesses for certain things, mostly having to do with transfers of real estate.
Because of the dollar amounts. The dollar amounts.
Money.
And also because of the change of title, the change of ownership.
Okay, so, I'm... are you okay, the person who's telling me about never told my parents for me to mention your first initial? So there's somebody who's posting comments on my live, and so I guess people can go there and look. But there are many, many survivors. She actually just said yes. So S, who's streaming, was a victim of rape and assault when she was younger. And she says here, never told my parents, absolutely afraid as a young person, just now starting to deal with it, having to deal with rejection of family because they don't want to believe you. There's a lot of repercussions to coming forward. And if you think back 36 years ago, she said since she's only 29, 36 years ago, for somebody to come out and admit that they had been the victim, they would have been blamed.
Actually, 1980s, it would have been your fault.
Yeah.
What were you wearing?
What were you wearing? What were you doing?
Was it a miniskirt?
Were you high? Were you drunk? Were you... Right. So there's a ton of that goes on. And, particularly if somebody finds themselves in that situation and, they're going to second guess themselves that, how could I have been so stupid?
Well, that also is, did they go along with it at the time and feel horrible about it after?
That's a whole different question. Did they give permission? Is it buyer's remorse? If it's assault, I don't think so. But
if it's assault, then you should have.
You
should have fought back, and you should have.
Okay, I'm gonna give you an example. Somebody breaks into your house, holds a knife to your neck, and says, "I'll kill your kids if you don't lie still and be quiet." What are you gonna do?
Well, I kind of have a plan for that.
She reaches for her gun under her pillow.
Okay, and I get that, but are you willing to risk your kids if you don't catch him?
No, of course not.
Okay, that's the point, right? Right, and not everybody has that gun under their pillow either. And in the moment or whatever, or he grabs one of your kids and holds it. Are you going to shoot?
Yes.
You're going to shoot your kid?
No.
Yeah. You're going to trust your shot well enough
Yes,
to get around the
definitely.
kid? Okay. Well, I don't think everybody's that willing. So, because cops very often find it hard to even take a shot.
Yeah, I don't know. My kids, of course.
So it's
anything. Do anything.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So
she likes to shoot.
I understand that she likes to shoot. So, and the other possibility is that somebody comes up to you. So here's a piece, right? So now you're going to get, assault with a deadly weapon on you.
We'll work it out.
There are people who have ended up in prison.
Yeah, because some attacker was inside their house.
Yeah,
I would work that out in court. I'd have to hire Stuart.
So, because surprisingly, it's or even worse yet, well, never mind. We won't even go to all of those sidebars. Please give us a call at 772-340-1590.
On that note, I am going to leave and listen to you in the car. I have to take my son now over to the pediatrician.
Okay, well, take care.
So have a good
Hope
rest of the
everything
show,
works out
and I'll
well.
be listening.
Have
Thank
fun
you.
in the waiting room.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So
You
let's
have to go to the doctor.
Yeah.
You sit in the waiting room for a little while, and then they take you back, and then you sit in the second waiting room
yeah.
for a little while.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you'd like to take a break?
Yeah, let's take a
All right.
break.
We'll be back with more Ask a Lawyer with Ask a Rabbi here on WPSL.
Congregation Eitz Chayim is pleased to present the first annual Treasure Coast Expo on October 7th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Virtual rooms, food trucks, lots of different exhibits, a chance to win $1,000. You could win $1,000. No charge for admission. This is Rabbi Shafir Lobb of Ask a Rabbi. Please join us at the Port St. Lucie Civic Center. For more information, please check out our website, eitzchayim.org.
Divorce is a time of high stress and anxiety, a time when people need personalized attention, a time when you need someone who cares. Hello, I'm attorney Stuart M. Address. I practice law on the Treasure Coast and have been an attorney for more than 30 years. My firm is relatively new to the area of divorce and family law. I became involved in this area because of my own divorce in 2013 and because of how it affected both me and my child. I've been through the litigation ringer, and I understand. Aggressive advocacy is required, and I believe in being available to each of my clients. I believe in advising you both about your legal rights and real-life considerations. For an initial case review, call me at Stuart M. Address, PA, 772-781-8003, or send us a message through our website at www.stuartaddresslaw.com. We will respond because we care. Our office is in Stuart, Florida.
Congregation Eitz Chayim, your welcoming, inclusive, spiritual, and joyful Jewish home in Port St. Lucie. We welcome you to renew your inner Jew and join us. We are Reform Jewish with a renewal flair. We are multi-generational. We are welcoming to all. Come join us for a Friday night at 7:30 p.m. for our Kabbalat Shabbat services, or Stolen Moments on Saturday morning, where we discuss the Parsha of the week at 9:30 a.m. Shabbat morning services follow Stolen Moments, usually at around 10:30 a.m. Our address is 540 Northwest University, across from Met Stadium, and we are in Suite 102. Again, that's 540 Northwest University, Suite 102. Please join us for Friday nights at 7:30 p.m. or Shabbat morning starting at 9:30 a.m. for Stolen Moments. Congregation Eitz Chayim.
And this is a special edition of Ask a Lawyer, hosted by Ask a Rabbi, our Rabbi Shafir Lobb, and we're back.
Thank you. Yes,
and we
thank
have
you.
some. We have
And
some callers on.
Well,
Yes.
callers. We have Bulldog. Hi, Bulldog.
Hi, how are you?
I am doing
Hi.
great. Thank you so much for calling.
I just wanted to say, hi to you, Rabbi, and I just want to say, Veronica,
Uh-huh.
I love your answers. You're spot on with me. Yeah, on any of the shooting questions. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, sorry, but I'll defend it when it's over. However, when it comes down to that point, I know what to do. And so does Veronica.
Yes. Don't be in my house if you don't belong.
Exactly.
Understand.
I
However,
just wanted to make that comment.
understand. But, there are, what my point was that, and I hope you would agree, that there are times when you make decisions you don't like because of the safety of your family.
Mm-hmm.
And
And I think everybody would feel that way.
Yeah,
I don't think
so.
there's any mother or father anywhere.
Who doesn't? Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And that's, that's why perpetrators often use them in their threats, right? Bullies use them in the threats. And so, there are times when people submit when they don't really want to. And it may take a while until they feel safe enough to come out and address that. So that's part of it.
It's retreat, but while you're retreating, find a weapon.
When you can, I agree. And you're talking to somebody who fired expert in the military,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not like I'm not opposed to weapons. They have their place, so you won't get an argument for
Mm-hmm.
that from me. My mother never allowed me to have a gun, but that didn't mean I didn't have a yardstick and and a piece of wood. Imaginations of kids are great. So I do understand, using self-defense when you can. You're not always able, and certainly a child is not able to. And a teenager, again, not likely to have fired a weapon, and
Their decision-making process is a little bit weird.
well, but even so, even if their decisions were spot on, their tool set of what they can do to defend themselves is just not as diverse. And especially if it's a friend, a family member, somebody that they would otherwise trust, then it's really devastating, right? But if kids weren't malleable and stealable, there wouldn't be human trafficking, right? And we know that that's one of the biggest problems.
Then
we've
they
got.
get away with it because they're little and they're not as strong, and they
Well, and we have the
believe strangers before they believe their parents. There's that
Sometimes.
whole,
Yeah. there's all kinds of things, and strangers use all kinds of lies. Right? Your parents are dead,
and they take advantage of their innocence.
right? Absolutely, and we are very close to, we've got a lot of trafficking in this state, unfortunately. We've got some really big centers. So thank you for that, Bulldog. I appreciate it. I'm glad you called in. Thank you. And on line 2, we have Carol. Thank you for calling, Carol.
I'm not sure because the line is lit, which means someone's on that line.
Carol, are you there?
No, someone else is on that line.
Okay,
so,
someone
yeah.
else is on that line. Never mind.
We'll wait. We'll give it a minute.
We'll
and
give
see
it
if
a
they
minute
put them back
and
on
see if
hold.
they come back. Okay, there we go. So, thank you for calling, and anybody else who'd like to call in to 772-340-1590.
Let's try Carol now.
Ask a Rabbi, and Carol has got a question. Thank you for calling, Carol.
Thanks for the topic. In one of your conversations, you were saying that under Jewish law, it takes 2 witnesses to corroborate.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, because you didn't go into it, you said you kept having it on the mind, but I'm wondering why that differs for you for the Kavanaugh case. And the reason I'm asking is because I wanted to believe her, and I did, but then I believed him. And the difference to me is that none of the witnesses and none of his potential witnesses, apparently, according to reports, corroborated her. And instead, they corroborated him, including her friends.
So I think
they weren't just all his buddies.
I think there's been some corroboration on both sides. So this is going to take a little more detail to figure out.
I haven't heard that. All I've heard is that there are other people making allegations, but nobody who is corroborating her actual.
Her best friend even said that she never even mentioned it.
She may not have mentioned it. She may
her
not have mentioned it to her friend.
also said she doesn't remember that it happened, which what I'm saying is that means there's no corroboration. And to me, it's important to keep the benefit of the doubt with the accused.
Okay, so a couple of things. One, you're right, and if this was a rape assault case and he was being tried for it, then absolutely, then yes, then he's innocent until proven guilty, etc. But that's not the question with Judge Kavanaugh. Right? The question with Judge Kavanaugh is more about whether or not he's qualified for that position and whether or not he's lied. Those are two very different issues.
Okay, but if he didn't,
he said
do
he
it,
wasn't
then
even
he didn't
there.
Lie.
Okay,
and
I had
nobody,
yeah.
and none of the witnesses say he was. That's my point.
Okay, so
were there witnesses on either side though? That
there seems to be both.
Did
opinions.
anybody but her say that they were at this party?
No, that's my point. Nobody but her says she was at this
Okay,
party.
so I'm going to take
including her own friend.
I'm going to take a little sidebar, right? Which is, let's say, I'm going to even go on a ledge and say it almost doesn't matter if this particular case happened or not, and I'll explain why. As I'm getting strange looks even in the studio.
Well, I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm
because
curious
well,
too.
here's the piece, right? He has made some definitive statements of what he did and didn't do, and those have come under question. Like, was he aggressive when drinking? Did he have, did he drink? Did he have blackout drinking sessions? And he said no, he never did.
And nobody corroborated that he had blackout drinking sessions. One guy said he drank enough that he could believe he did, but never saw it.
Well, it's kind of hard to know when somebody blacks out if they don't remember the next day what they did. That's what a blackout is. It doesn't mean that you pass out and fall on the ground. So
I agree.
Okay, so somebody might not know.
No, she said there were two men in the room, so there is a witness.
Okay, so and
But
we can't get to that
people
person.
She named,
Yeah, we can't get to that other person. Which is
the
and
people
that's
she named said no. The people she named said it didn't happen.
it depends on where you're looking at the news, and I hate to say that, but there's very, very
Well, the news
different-
has clearly taken sides as well. So
yeah, it's breaking down as it often does. So it depends on many things, right? Blackouts are not uncommon in people who perpetrate crimes. They very often don't remember having done it for a number of reasons. And
I agree with that. I'm just saying that the person who came closest to saying the guy was lying said he drank enough that he could believe it, but he had never actually seen him have a blackout, and this was his roommate, so he would have known whether the guy remembered the next day or not.
Okay, so
and he didn't go that far.
So I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate.
you've only
I've
got
only
a minute
got
left
a minute
in
left
the show.
to do it. We might have to pick this back up and ask a rabbi, Carol. So the challenge is here, right? He's not being tried for the crime of assault. He's being judged for whether or not he's qualified and fit for a lifetime appointment as somebody who can adjudicate, right? Who can be a judge in the highest court of our land, who can represent what we, the culmination.
As opposed to the second highest court of our land, which he's been doing for 12 years.
Right. And so with that, Carol, I'm going to have to go ahead and sign off. We can pick it up in 5 minutes at Ask a Rabbi. This is Rabbi Shafir Lobb, standing in for Stuart Address, one great attorney.
This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.